The master section is located on the far right-hand side of the workspace, and it is where all of the mastering processes are going to be happening, including things like effects and resampling and dithering and so forth. So let me take you through the 6 different segments of the master section, and I should mention that anytime you're playing an audio file or audio montage from the editor, it's going to be going through the master section by default. You can tell it not to so that it just plays directly to the outputs of your audio interface and therefore bypassing all of the processing of the master section, but by default, everything runs through the master section. So let's start at the top of the window here where we can find the effects pane. There are 6 of these panes, and I want to take you through each one. Underneath that, you'll find little slots for all of the plugins that you want to apply to an audio file or an audio montage. You'll notice that I have one loaded right now, which is Master Rig. If I wanted to load another one, I can just right or control click on the next slot down, and then I can choose from all of the different plugins that either came with Wavelab or that you have installed on your computer. So if you wanted to use a different limiter, you have access to all of those different limiters right here, or a different filter or a different equalizer. And so all of those different plugins are available in all of these slots. You can have as many slots as you want, and they'll start to populate down, which will make these other panes a little bit smaller. But then the next thing that happens is it goes through the resampling processor, and it's important to remember that the signal flow starts from the top and then goes straight down to the very, very bottom. So your signal will pass through the effects plugin slots first, then move on to the resampling. Since we're not going to be doing a lot of resampling or nothing right now, there is no resampling plugin loaded into the resampling pane. Then we get to the master level, and this is where you'll find the faders for your left and right outputs. You can link or unlink the faders, but it's really important to know that unless you have a specific reason to do so, you probably shouldn't change these master level faders. Some people mistake these as the output control of Wavelab, and they adjust their speaker volumes with these faders. And when you do that, your audio exports are going to be really quiet, or they might be really loud if you've turned them up all the way. So it's really important to leave these right at the default positions. You can double click on them to get them back to the 0 dB default position. And there's another way to adjust the output level. I'll show you that in just a moment. Let's go down to the next pane, which are the final effects and dithering. All of the dithering that you would do to an audio file to alter its bit depth to a lower bit depth will happen right here after the master level faders. Then it goes through the playback processing, which is what you may hear on your studio monitors, but is not applied to the audio file when you render it. And I like to use the SonarWorks plugin, so I could add that plugin to my list right here if I wanted to, but I'm going to leave the playback processing off right now, and let's look at the speaker configuration. You can have up to 4 saved speaker configurations to switch between each ones. So if you have multiple studio monitors connected to your audio interface, you can switch between them here. But then there's a little knob right here, which is the speaker gain, and that is the best way to adjust the playback level of Wavelab. It won't change the audio level of the rendered file when you start to master your files down to a new audio file. It instead only adjusts the output of the audio interface itself. So if your audio interface doesn't have a volume knob on it, or it has one but it's not conveniently located where you are in your studio right next to your computer, then you can use this control to adjust the listening level of your studio monitors. And all you do is click and drag that up or down, and you can change the level. And if you wanted to get it right back to 0, you just hold down Alt or Option on your computer keyboard and click it. That'll set it right back to 0 dB. And then there's one more great feature of the master section, which is the smart bypass. Because if you just bypass individual plugins or bypass the entire master section to hear a before and after of your mastering, the problem is that because of the use of master limiters, you'll probably get a big boost in audio level or loudness when you use that as the AB feature like this. See, the mastered version is a lot louder than the original. So what you'll want to do is hear the difference between the mastered and unmastered versions at the same level, and that's where the smart bypass comes in. So when I call up that window, then I have the option to hear the audio in its original form versus the processed or mastered version with level correction, so that I can really hear the mastering processes and not get that big boost in level. So let me show you how this works. I'm going to start some playback, and then I'm going to hit the Update Gains button. That will match the loudness between the mastered and unmastered versions, and then I can switch between the mastered and unmastered versions by playing the original audio or the processed audio with the level correction. So here's the original audio. Here's the mastered version. So you see how there isn't a big bump in level all of a sudden? Because we want to hear it in its original context. It makes it really easy to hear what your mastering is doing to the audio without that master limiter boost all of a sudden. So that is the master section. Next, let's talk more about the master rig plugin.